from death, become this city's savior. Hello, Bruce. Can't be.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to Paws On Animation and another DC podcast.
Yes, you know we gotta keep doing these. And today we're covering the DC animated movie, The Doom That Came to Gotham.
One I never thought we'd cover.
Right?
Now, it's based on the original miniseries by Mike Mignola, reimagining Batman in the 1920s Prohibition Era. And Bruce is going up against supernatural forces by a secret cult.
Of course, it's something like that.
Bent on reshaping Gotham yet again by unleashing, I should say, an ancient deity. And remember, this is Mike Mignola.
So that's why it's got monsters.
But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and catch us on future podcasts and Wanna Pause videos.
thank you so much for joining us today. Subscribing, share our videos, commenting, join us for Superhero Month, everything you do. As always, we really do appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
So, Batman, the Doom That Came to Gotham, came out in 2023.
Yes, it's a couple years old now, believe it or not. And DC has been going through a change, really, for their animated movies. And the biggest thing is that, for a lot of people have said, they don't really hold people's attention as much as they used to in the beginning when they adapted certain stories and turned them into their standalone animated films and people held them in high regard. Then they decided to reboot the universe one time and make it all one thing, and they stopped adapting the story and started doing their own thing, and people started being disinterested. Then they rebooted it 2 to 3 more times and still trying to get people to get into it, but majority of these movies didn't seem to get their attention to praise as much up until 2 movies, Gotham by Gaslight and this one we're covering now.
Yes. Now, this movie ran 83 minutes, and Mike Mignola did not work on this movie himself. It's just based on the comic series, and that ran 3 issues.
Okay.
The Doom That Came to Gotham. It was released between November 2000 and January 2001. 3 issues.
Right.
And the main characters were Batman and Ra's al Ghul.
Yes, this time. They go a completely different route rather than you seeing usually the same characters in the other Elseworlds type movies. And this falls under the same category as that. And in case you don't know, Elseworlds are sort of these AUs that DC does. They're mostly one-shot films, and they imagine them in a different time period or what-if scenarios. They involve these supernatural crossovers and stuff. They're not in the regular canon, but they're fun one-time stories to do. And they did a heavy amount of YA graphic novels with them, but they barely have been doing adaptations of comics that already exist. So I think it's interesting that they decided to go back to doing that with The Doom That Came to Gotham.
Now, quickly, for this particular series, it was written by Mike Mignola and Richard Pace, penciled by Troy Nixie, and inked by Dennis Jonke, colorist Dave Stewart. So they had a lot of different people working on it.
Right.
And this was actually his 3rd work for Batman.
Really?
And it's full, as you can see when you watch the actual movie, of Lovecraft-inspired renditions of the DC heroes. And in addition, the story's title is an allusion to Lovecraft's The Doom That Came to Sama.
Okay.
And in 2015, the story was collected into one full volume by DC and published as a trade paperback.
Really?
And now this movie that we saw was loosely based on the comic.
And we had never read the original comic.
True.
We
hopefully we will now.
Right. And when this movie was announced during the time they're releasing the animated films, we were interested in seeing it, but things happened and we ended up not seeing it. And I really, of course, wanted to see because Mike Mignola, based on one of his stories, writing Batman, knew it had to be good. And we had this sort of temporary free week. We got to see a lot of DC movies.
And so, full disclosure, this is not one that we own.
Right.
Many of the ones we've covered, we own.
Right.
But this is not one that we own.
Right. So we had quite a few duds when we were trying out these movies. Some were good, some were okay. Most of them were kind of just like lost the magic the others had.
Fortunately, they were free.
Right.
You didn't have to pay for them. and it made it a little easier to swallow.
Yeah.
Some of these DC movies, the current ones, weren't as great as some of the former ones.
Right. So when we got to this one, we're like, these past ones have been just okay or not good. I don't know how this is gonna be, but we were very pleasantly surprised
And
when we watched it.
because of Mignola.
Right. We were pleasantly surprised when we watched it and it ended up being a fantastic movie till maybe the last 2 minutes.
And we're not kidding, and we'll get to that. So this is directed by Christopher Berkeley and Sam Liu, written by Jace Ritchie. As we mentioned, it's based on Mignola's stories, but he wasn't involved at all.
Right.
There were 5 producers and 4 main casts, and we'll get to that shortly, with music by Stephen Smith. The music was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually really grateful we got to see it, because, again, up until the last 2 minutes, this is one of the best DC movies that have recently been made.
Yes. And we say that because, yes, there's a lot of not just Lovecraft references in here, but also Hellboy homages in here. Like, there's several times there, and you can tell he sprinkled a little bit of his original comic in there.
And the designs, clearly, of the characters.
Right.
They speak Hellboy.
Right. And they've already had a crossover at one point in the comics, so it fits right in.
And we were really hoping that Batman would appear in here, even if shortly, for like 30 seconds or a minute or something.
Or like a little cameo or something.
But it didn't happen, unfortunately.
Right. And what happens in this story, like we said, he goes up against a sort of reimagined version of Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, and this really cult they have rather than a clan. And as it goes on, you see the appearances of several of Batman's rogues that have also been reimagined. But that was part of the fun. They didn't just go straight into Joker and Harley, which seems to be the number one that everyone goes to. But this time, they were not involved in this movie whatsoever. And it became a mystery of who they were, the Al Ghuls in this universe, and what was their plan and how did they stop them. It ended up being a more supernatural mystery, which was actually much different, and it was actually refreshing to see some new take on it.
What I do like is that we had the appearance of quite a few heroes
that
we did not expect to see. The designs were fantastic. It had that steampunk meets Mignola look to them, but it looks really good, and you don't look at them like, oh my gosh, or why did they design them like that? You don't feel that way when you're looking at them. You're going, wow, this is cool. And you just keep saying the whole time, Mignola, it's Mignola, it's Mignola.
Yes.
Because I'm grateful also that they stuck with the designs that he came up with and didn't decide to update them or do them differently.
Right.
Or go to someone else's like Bruce Timm, because it would have ruined the effect knowing that this was based on his work.
Exactly. And now we hear that it was loosely based on the comic. This might explain some choices done in the movie. Now, for those who have probably already read the comic, you can let us know if we are wrong. And it's perfectly fine because we have not read it yet, but we will be at some point down the line. The story is, like we said, supernatural mystery all the way up to it has its climactic conclusion. However, there are parts in the movie where you felt like they had added some type of modernized addition to it, because the book was written, now we know, in 2001. It's over a decade old. So there's clearly a lot of things we can tell that were either from the comic or were modern day things that DC and all these other ones feel like they have to put into the film.
2 decades old.
Yes, thank you. 2 decades old. And especially when it came to a couple of their female characters, it felt like they had changed a bit of them for this movie because they wanted to modernize. Even though it takes place in 1920s, we had to modernize the 20s. Go figure. But if we're wrong, let us know. And the ending was probably a little disappointing. So we might find out that they changed the ending and not know it.
And we're going to tell you about that ending. So there's going to be a big spoiler here at some point.
So you might want to stop just in case.
Right. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me, and we agree, is that Batman the Caped Crusader definitely stole from this work.
Yes. And we say that...
And we say stole because they tried to pretend it was based on other things. But when you see this movie and you see the designs and everything that happens, no, they took it from Mignola.
Exactly. Because the biggest thing about Cape Crusaders, they kept saying it was like a sort of revival, homage, whatever you want to call it, to the Batman the Animated Series, since that was a beloved animated show and they wanted to recapture that. And unfortunately for us, they did not. But when people kept saying this stuff, they said, oh, it's going to be darker and grittier and things didn't happen in the original. No, they actually toned that down way more considerably than the original show. It didn't feel like that original series. It felt like something else. When we started watching this movie, a majority of the elements in this movie were used for Cape Crusader.
Yes, definitely.
So that's what it is.
How the characters look, designs, the ambiance, and even though, if I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to take place in the 30s.
Yeah,
it looked like this one that took place in the 20s,
which is why
some people were confused as to what it looked like, Cape Crusader, when it came out. And I remember people saying online, this doesn't feel or look like the 30s. I think they got it wrong, and they did, because they took it from Mignola's 20s.
Yes, and I think they thought, hey, everyone's got this noir style trench coat, slightly black and white theme to it. It's the same decade, might as well be. Just slap it on. No one's gonna notice.
Decades, 20s and 30s.
It's
That's
10 year difference.
People.
It's a 10-year difference.
And granted, none of us were here during that time, so you thought you could pull one over on us.
Right.
But the truth came to light by watching this movie, and Mignola is responsible for Cape Crusader. And it's very sad they did not give him credit for it and tried to pretend there was another source.
Exactly.
But DC now is
it's
shady,
right?
So hey,
you've been caught. So they said the movie,
a smooth criminal.
The movie itself, he said, is fantastic. There's
Yes.
plenty of action. There's an ongoing mystery. You cannot predict what happens unless maybe you read the book and know how the beats go. It is one of a kind. It's something that was lacking for the DC movies for a while and being something different and stand out. And I could see us even rewatching this movie, whether it be for July Superhero Month or October for Halloween.
And turn it off before it gets to the last 2 minutes. Now, one of the things that they did, as you mentioned, to update it, is at the end. Well, let's get to the end part first.
Yeah. So.
In the end, in a way, Bruce Wayne, Batman, is killed. And we say that because he becomes like a man-bat who's not changed back, and everyone thinks he's dead.
Yeah, and he makes a deal. He's like, are you sure you want to do this? It said it was saying in order to defeat Al Ghul, he had to give up humanity. And if that's what it took, he had to accept. So I guess he did it.
Now, what was interesting here, you had Dick Grayson, you had Damian Wayne, and you had a version of, they called her Kylie.
Yeah, he knew it was
Cassandra Cain. And true to, as we were saying, to modernize it, unfortunately, they kill off the other two. And she's left to take over the empire, the girl. The youngest one and the girl.
Yeah,
and
it didn't
we were
feel
like,
right.
you know what? You're trying to modernize this.
Yeah, they didn't
They
feel
killed
right.
off the men, all three men, and the only one left is Alfred, who now will be her Alfred Pennyworth instead of Bruce's. And we thought that pretty much sucked.
Yeah. And we do know Mignola does have death in his stories sometimes, even for Hellboy, but not to this extent where only the female characters are left standing and they reap the benefits. And for us, that doesn't seem right because the ending, like those last 2 minutes, didn't match the whole rest of the movie. And that's just how we feel.
And on top of that, Green Arrow was killed off.
Yeah.
And Harvey Dent. So as we said, all the men who made a difference and helped to save Gotham were killed off.
Right.
And only Kylie, who didn't do anything,
Really, she didn't.
was left over the Wayne Empire.
Which was very bizarre.
Yeah, that was a bad way to end it. So that's why we say if you watch this movie, turn it off the last 2 minutes. Don't watch it.
Right.
Because up until that point, this was an excellent movie. The action, the suspense, the storyline, and even if it was changed from Mignola's book, they, up until that last 2 minutes, they did it in a way that it was entertaining, and it really felt like a DC movie.
Yes.
Now, there are other movies we saw during that time, like
Was it Warworld?
World, and some others, and they just did not feel like DC movies, but they just did. This really, really did. To the last 2 minutes.
Yes. So this is just how we feel about it. If you feel differently, or you want to tell us what really happened in the book, what they kept and left out, please let us know. We'll probably be covering that comic later on anyway. But again, we highly recommend it. Just shut it off after the city is saved, and that's how the movie ends for you.
Thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. That way.
Right.
So let's go over the voice cast. We have David Giuntoli as Bruce Wayne Batman. We're not familiar with him at all. We didn't know who he was.
He seemed to be a star, though.
But I looked him up, and he was in the NBC series Grimm.
Oh,
and also ABC's A Million Little Things. So
that makes
those
sense.
of you familiar with those, then you know who he is.
That makes sense for the Grimm part.
Tati Gabrielle is Kylie Kane, and she got higher billing because she was in the Netflix series Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Oh, that's on CW.
Right, so she on Netflix.
Oh,
so
yeah, sorry, I went to
she
Netflix.
was a star for, I guess, 2 more current ones.
Okay.
Christopher Gorham as Oliver Queen, John DiMaggio as James Gordon, Patrick Fabian as Harvey Dent, Two-Face, Brian George as Alfred Pennyworth, Jason Marsden as Dick Grayson and young Bruce Wayne.
Wow.
Karan Bar as Sanjay J. Toddy. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, it wasn't Damien. He took Damien's place, which we didn't understand.
I guess maybe because he didn't exist back then.
But, yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm guessing.
David Doxmakian as Grendon. David Nehraban as Ra's al Ghul. Emily O'Brien as Talia al Ghul. And Martha Wayne, which confused me because Talia was around.
Right.
And Martha, maybe he never got with her in this version.
Maybe, yeah.
So she voiced both Talia and his mom. Tim Russ as Lucius Fox. Matthew Watterson as Jason Blood Etrigan. Yes. Jeffrey Combs as Kirk Langstrom. William Sawyers as Oswald Cobblepot and Professor Manfred. Gideon Adlon as Barbara Gordon, Oracle, and Pamela Isley, Poison Ivy, and Darren DePaul as Thomas Wayne. So there were not a lot of voice actors from other DC movies in here. Mm-hmm. Looks like they wanted something entirely different from what DC has been given in 2023. Yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes, who was rotten at this time still, gave it a 77% and a 6.5 out of 10. So they thought the opinion was this movie's best enjoyed by the fans, who will probably have a lot to argue about when it's over. That's how they
I guess the ending.
Another superhero animated movie that's best enjoyed by the fans. So they're saying if you're not a fan of DC or a fan of Mignola, you're probably not going to like this movie.
I guess
it was also described by some critics as Batman the Animated Series with a modern edge. I disagree.
How's it modern? It's the 20s. Well, I guess the ending was more modern or something, but come on.
But I disagree. And here's something that's really interesting. February of that year, James Gunn confirmed that all DC animated films are being released and labeled as DC Elseworlds.
All of them? What? Why?
And this one was what started it all.
Oh, God.
So yet again, Mignola's being robbed. And
so now it's like
Gunn is taking everything from inspiration from his comics and this movie and making his universe.
So expect hints of this in whatever he's got projects, whether it's animated or live, related to Batman.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mignola just can't catch a break. All this brilliance, all this creativity, all this different way of doing things. And as usual, the studios take advantage of the writers. And we've seen it happen so many times. It's ridiculous, and it's just unfortunate we're seeing it happen again. That being said, if you've seen Batman, The Doom That Came to Gotham, let us know in the comments. If you've read the comic, let us know as well.
Yes.
Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think like us it was great until the last 2 minutes? Let us know. And if it's really a big departure from his comic and comics, the 3 you've read, please tell us. We really want to know. And if you haven't seen it, again, we recommend you watch this. This is the best thing to come out of DC animated universe for a while.
Yeah.
We've been really disappointed in a lot of the movies we've seen. This one was one that shined. Also, Crisis.
On was it Infinite?
Yeah,
Earth?
Crisis Infinite Earths Part 1.
And that's
a good
it.
one as well. But watch it, come back and tell us what you think.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, weekly videos for anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
And as far as we know, unless you buy this movie, it's only available on Max to watch.
Yep, or try to go get a DVD or something. I don't know.
Unless you get the DVD.
Yeah.
Or you have Max, there's no way you're going to see this film.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Oh, well.
And it's unfortunate because yet again, Mignola gets robbed.
Yes. He was robbed.
Yeah. This could have been a really great movie, but because of the way it was released, unfortunately,
Yeah.
most people aren't going to see it. So, thank you for joining us for this superhero podcast, Superhero Month podcast.
Yes.
We thank you so much for everything you do. As always,
You are special. Thank you so much for watching Mask
And
Entertainment.
the Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.